good morning to everyone participating in this event. As already introduced about me, I worked on especially this climate change, disasters, and other international projects, Afghanistan, Indonesia, and in 12 other countries. I have contributed, as well as within India, about 18 states. I have contributed on these issues. And especially climate change and disasters is definitely around 7, 8 projects I have done, implemented our national and international. And with this background, recently, as we all know, the urban population has increased globally as compared to rural. It's more than 50% now. And within India also, it is crossing 50% very soon. It means the challenges in urban area and especially cities and urban planning, even as a geographer, understanding the spatial aspects overlaid by all these challenges of infrastructure, the natural or the other, including man-made causes, is causing lots of hazards and disasters. And this is one of the biggest challenges now globally. And India is no exception, and which we see every year now, especially let us say rains, then we see how even the small rain can flood a city, and we have many challenges like that. So, bringing from my own experiences, especially one of the cities recently, I have done this risk analysis, that is GIFT City, that is Gujarat International Finance Capital City, basically near Gandhinagar. That is a small city, but the densification is one of the things that people are looking at. They want to bring all the important institutions together and in a very little space, so that there is more communication and access to resources and management. Again, this is putting other challenges. Here, the hazard is a term, but hazard has so many meanings, whether it is man-made, natural, or anything. Ultimately, it has the potential to cause something. So that is, anyhow, I will be sharing the definitions of that. So let me go to the presentation. So you can share my presentation, madam. When I say next, then you can change the next. So excuse me, I have this poor connectivity here, and I'm actually on the road, and it is raining outside. And sitting in my car, I'm doing this webinar. It's okay. I think as long as you can hear me, that's fine. Yeah,
So
continue,
it's
madam.
already put up on the things. You can you see the
Okay.
presentation? Yeah.
I am unable to see, but let me click it. Yeah, I can see the
Yeah.
presentation.
Mm.
Yeah, so here, next slide, madam. So we know one of this is a triple disaster that happened in Fukushima. That's earthquake, then tsunami, followed by nuclear plant disaster. So simultaneously, three disasters occurring together in one place. This is one of the best examples what can happen, because many things are interrelated. So this event happened in March 11, 2011, and it has caused lots of destruction, and nobody can forget this particular disaster because of the magnitude and the impact, and including a country like Japan also could not cope with this with all kinds of systems in place. So here hazard, basically these definitions are very much required to understand the context of my speaking today. So here it's a process, phenomenon, or human activity that may cause loss of life, injury, or other health impacts, property damage, social and economic disruption, or environmental degradation. Hazard includes, especially as I mentioned in the Sendai framework, you all might be knowing about this framework for disaster risk reduction, 2015 to 2030. This is the period that want to achieve. Okay. So they include the biological, environmental, geological, hydrometeorological, and technological process and phenomena. It means everything which you could see practically that's happening today. If I have put biological ahead because now you see the coronavirus, although the local environment because of the closeness of people and the infrastructure and everything, the proneness of this coronavirus in the cities is more than rural areas. Now I'm in rural area where there is more comfort for people in maintaining the physical distance. Even in architecture, especially latest architecture, this kind of social aspects are also coming into picture because this is also a major hazard. That's why. Excuse me. So hazards, as I said, natural, anthropogenic, and all that. So this man-made hazards, they are induced entirely or predominantly by human activities and choices. Let us say some of the floods. Let us say Kerala floods. It is basically purely because of and Chinese recent Chinese floods also. We have very good number of dams and everything reservoirs, but unplanned or management of this water or sudden release of water. So that is causing more damage than the real rains. Otherwise, naturally, the things would not have been so aggravated. So these kind of things are happening. And other things is the location, intensity, magnitude, and frequency and probability. These are also very much important. And the biological hazards are also defined by their infectious or toxicity or other characteristics of the pathogen, such as the dose response, incubation period, and all this also matter. So this is become a big topic now for everyone. So multi-hazard, why we are calling multi-hazard is in any geographical area, it may be prone to several hazards. So that's why we say multi-hazard. So the selection of multiple major hazards that the country faces, or even the geographically local or the site specific also, and the specific context where hazardous events may occur simultaneously, cascadingly, or cumulatively over time. Okay. I gave that's why I started with Fukushima, the triple disaster. Okay. And taking into account the potential interrelated effects and natural hazard. So natural hazards are defined by the United Nations Center is there for disasters, UNISDR, as a natural process for phenomenon that may cause loss of life, injury, or other health impacts. Okay. So property damage, loss of livelihoods and services, social and economic disruption or environmental damage. So natural hazards can be characterized by their and same thing which I mentioned earlier. So people say there is nothing called natural disaster. There is a natural hazard basically. So the once a natural hazard happens, I mean, say it really happens in reality, then it becomes a disaster. So vulnerability. So this is very important because vulnerability is a most it depends on so many factors basically. Exposure, sensitivity, adaptive capacity, like that many things are there which are related to vulnerability. So here most important is the physical, social, economic, environmental factors or processes. These are very much important in defining vulnerability, which increase the susceptibility of an individual, a community, assets or systems to the impacts of hazards. So anyhow, I'll be sharing this presentation so the organizers of this program can share my presentation to the participants so they can go through later on this material. So vulnerability is a multi-dimensional in its nature and next to the four dimensions above, some authors also include cultural and institutional factors also. Okay. So both here examples include poor design, construction of buildings, inadequate protection of assets, lack of public information and awareness, high levels of poverty and education, limited official recognition of risks, and preparedness measures also. So the disregard for wise environmental management or weak institutions and governance. So there are so many aspects which are interrelated defining this vulnerability. So here Individuals can be vulnerable, community can be vulnerable, or the total systems can be vulnerable. So vulnerability is most important even in the planning of the life of any person also. So the next slide is exposure. As I told, exposure is defined by the situation basically, where we are located, how we are located, like that, like the situation of people. So let us say you are sitting close to a window, so you might get good light and sunlight also. The people who are sitting inside, they may not get light like that. So it is simple as like that. So infrastructure, housing, production capacities, and other tangible human assets located in hazard-prone areas. Okay, so as these are also the measures of exposure can include the number of people or types of assets in an area. Let us say in a desert, the exposure will be less because there are no people, there are not many assets. It is something like that. Whereas in high density cities where which are already located, there it is very high. This can be combined with the specific vulnerability and capacity of the exposed elements. This is very important. So, capacity means, let us say you are feeling very hot. So, but your body can tolerate that kind of heat. Then it means your body's capacity is there. So, your vulnerability is less for that kind of, let us say, sunstroke. So, like that, we have to understand. So, risk is most important. Again, this is a factor which is related to hazard and vulnerability and exposure. Where the three things are together, then there is a chance of risk that comes in between as a set. You can see the top corner picture for clear understanding. Okay. So risk doesn't happen where there is no hazard. Okay. So where there is proneness, then only the risk factor will come into picture. So risk is disaster risk is defined as the potential loss of life, injury, or destroyed or damaged assets which could occur to a system, society, or a community in a specific period of time, determined probabilistically as a function of hazard, exposure, and capacity. Okay. So this is a this factor even in your life when you say when somebody is speaking to you for insurance, so they always say risk. So this is what it means. Okay. So I'm cutting short some of the definition so that we can understand more from the real examples. So here in any geographical area, so now you know the latest environmental impact assessment, the otherwise the Environmental Protection Act of the Government of India. That has been altogether originally there was a zoning atlas prepared for the whole country where the industries can come up and where the industries of a particular nature cannot come up. So they have done in those days with the context of environment. Okay. But now this risk analysis, one big factor, it cuts across all these local environmental challenges and it goes beyond. It is more like superset imposing. So let us say this is a map where we are trying to understand the vulnerability factors or the risk factors. So the flood prone area, the very highly flood prone area are clearly shown next to the banks of the river and beyond you could see in this picture. So this kind of based on the contours, one can easily provide a vulnerability, this kind of map for the whole area. So these are what we call is under the risk analysis. All these become part of analysis. So this we have seen the Kurnool floods are the main floods that happened that because of the Krishna River. So there also we have seen because there was lag time in the flood waters reaching those right from Kurnool to Narjansa to then again Prakasham barrage, then from there to the sea. So in between our GIS and at that time abstract was there. So they could prepare the maps and provide this kind of analysis. So what are the vulnerable areas like that? So this is very much required now, and this natural hazards, that is location, extent, previous occurrences, future probability. So if we consider under natural hazards also, what are the risk things? Then as community assets, if you see, then population, built environment, natural environment, economy, all these constitute community assets. So in between these two factors, the risk happens. It means if there is no population, there is no risk. It is something like, if there is no built environment, there is no risk. If there is no natural environment which sustains the livelihoods of the communities, then there is no risk. If there is no infrastructure like banking or service sector and all that, then there is no risk. Let us say Mumbai, it's a capital of the financial capital of India, let us say. So any flood or anything will definitely impact on the economy like that. So we have to understand like that. So here, as I said, the risk is a formula between like hazard, then vulnerability and amount, the occurrence. And all these things is a kind of formula it is given here. So you can go through these definitions later on. Capacity, as I said, this is very, very important. Why we go to college and why we want to increase our capacities. Okay, especially adaptive capacities is far more important than technological interventions. Mitigation is one factor, but before that, adaptation is far more important. So, a combination of all the strengths and resources available within a community, basically capacity means society or organization that can reduce the level of risk or the effects of a disaster. Uh, Capacity may include physical, institutional, social, and economic means, as well as skilled personnel or collective attributes such as leadership and management. Capacity may also be described as capability. Okay, here you see the leadership is also there. Let us say we have solutions, but if there is no leadership directing to use those solutions, then also there is a failure, the management issue. So, which you are seeing practically recently during COVID times, how each state is responding, the leadership is responding to the situation. All these factors you can put before you. Let us say the skills, the knowledge, all this of each even individual also. That's why before any natural disaster happening, the preparedness is the factor that comes into picture. So even conducting mock drills or the civil defense systems to be in place, trained personnel in place, local communities or local committees to tackle the situation. So there are so many things that need to be happen. They are part of the capacity actually. Hazards due to climate change, environmental degradation. So this is the most important. I have put up this is now we have this overlapping factors and most important environmental. Yes, it is there since 70s. It is in focus environment, the subject as well as all the laws and regulations and all that. But climate change, let us say last 25, 30 years, it has came into prominence as we see the greenhouse gases and the global average temperatures, they have increased, and we have now frequencies of extreme weather events such as floods, droughts, heat waves, and all this we are seeing. And heat island effect, that happens mainly in urban areas. And environmental hazard is a substance, a state, or an event which has the potential to threaten the surrounding natural environment or adversely affect people's health, including the natural disasters such as the storms and earthquakes like that. So here there are various other things which are interlinked also, uh, especially biological. With changing climate, the vectors or even the coronavirus, geographically, if we say particular latitudes with a particular temperature, the vulnerability of community is more. So like that, it is there. So then again, disaster, again, this aspect we had been, yeah, we already learnt about this. A disaster is a function of the risk process. It results from the combination of hazards, conditions of vulnerability, and insufficient capacity or measures to reduce the potential negative consequences of risk. Okay, even if we don't have these capacities, especially the governments, the infrastructure, especially the monetary aspects, if we don't have, then also we can't do anything. So coping is very, very important, put, because for any system, coping is immediate actually, it is not long term. Yeah, disaster slide only. Put on the disaster slide. Yeah. The means by which people or organizations use available resources and abilities to face adverse consequences that could lead to a disaster. Okay. So coping is immediate actually. It is not a final solution, but it is to just get along with the situation. It is something like that. Okay. Disaster risk reduction. This is ultimately a major subject now. What we say DRR, or disaster reduction. So basically, the conceptual framework of elements considered with the possibilities minimize uh, um, to minimize vulnerabilities and disasters throughout a society. To avoid prevention or to limit mitigation and preparedness, the adverse impacts of hazards within the broad context of sustainable development. Okay. So here, risk awareness and assessment, including hazard analysis and vulnerability and capacity analysis, knowledge development. All this is part of this DRR. Okay, under the topic it will come. Institutional frameworks also, including organizational policy, legislation, community action, like that, environmental management, land use, then early warning systems, like that. There are so many things. All these things constitute disaster risk reduction. So once we adopt this strategy, all the factors that I mentioned below need to be taken care. Only then we are working towards it. So people, poverty and disaster, this I have put up more. Next slide, please. So, yeah. So here, people, poverty, and disaster risk are increasingly concentrated in cities. This is why means ultimately the poor countries are highly vulnerable, and where the density of population is more, especially in the tropics and subtropic countries. And these are especially the cities, because the density factor of population and infrastructure like that. That's why it is more. High risk multi hazard zones for India, it is done here. So you could see the Andhra Pradesh, also we could see some. Next slide. Yeah. In Andhra Pradesh we could see, but Telangana is definitely a safer place, because we are far away from cyclones or earthquakes, tsunamis, floods also limited. Like that, so interior parts are mostly they're safer and better. That's why you could see the defense establishment, other strategic institutions are located in such places. So they also do lots of research on which place is safer and better, including from terrorism or biological. Many things are there, no, cross-border things. For that also, Hyderabad seems to be, or surrounding in Telangana, any part seems to be far better, safer place. So you all are in Hyderabad, so you are safe now. So from many things. Okay, it doesn't mean that terrorism, other things also that could happen anywhere. Recently, I've seen the Lebanon, the ammonium nitrate blast, the one of the biggest blasts in the recent history, man-made disaster. So such things can happen anywhere. Visakhapatnam saw three major disasters, two industrial and one crane collapsing like that. So that is happening continuously there. Although it is a smaller industrial area and port city. So like that many things can happen. So here we could always apply GAS and multi-hazard risk assessment in an urban environment we can do. And generation of a database of elements at risk in order to evaluate the vulnerability of buildings and population, that can happen. So this is only a sample I am showing. So, National Urban Flood Resilience Program. This I am sharing because recently I was leading this project for the World Bank in Indonesia. There are about 55 cities which are vulnerable, and they are subsiding below the sea level. Okay, that is the very strange thing happening there. It is archipelago. It is means a number of islands basically. The country doesn't have a common landmass like us. And because of urbanization, overdrawal of groundwater, and because of proximity to sea and sea level rise, tsunamis like that, many factors together contributed to this situation. And floods are very, very common there, happening either from the sea surge also creates floods. So you remember, and it creates a wall against the water outflows into the sea. Then also it is causing flood inundation inside. So we were engaged in the developing this national program for the government. So how to bring in financial things, how to plan the urban nature-based solutions that came up as architects in my life. That is a passion actually, even now. The green buildings and nature-based solutions and all that. Although I have not studied, but still that interest is there in me. So here nature-based solutions is very very much in. You might have heard about sponge cities or ABC, active clean waters. This program, beauty and clean waters program of Singapore. So like that in different cities, many models have come where we could use this water, flood water, not only for recharging and also could have co-benefits for the society and beautification and access to communities. So like that, many things are integrated into this. So here in this particular project, urban flood risk management, sector investments, diagnostic, who will invest in floods? And directly nobody will invest in mitigation of floods. But somehow we have to bring in interest in participation because once we start developing infrastructure by reclaiming the safer areas, then definitely the cost will go up in those areas. So they should pay back for this infrastructure development as protection measures. So like that, various innovative things have come into picture. So that community, what is a PPP model. So in urban planning, this is very much required. Without this financial thing and other things, having plans and programs or infrastructure doesn't help much. So we worked closely with the government of Indonesia together with the World Bank. So you can see how a major city like Jakarta is one of the largest cities in the world, how centrally, how it is spreaded, and every year this is happening now. And again, one more project I have done is this multi-hazard assessment and mapping in Guzar and Pashtun Zargon districts of Herat province, that is in Afghanistan, close to Iran border. Okay. So again, here we try to assess. It is not pertaining to city per se, but I am telling how important this aspect is. International Organization for Migration. The challenge is drought is a major problem there. It's also a hazard because drought causes long-term impacts because people will be displaced from their villages completely. They are uprooted from their villages, from their identity, and they go to different geographies, and their struggles will be multiplied. So that is what happening. That already happened, and the suffering of the people is very high. Now, so here this particular thing, uh, I did this mapping of those areas, and this area is particularly prone to earthquakes, cyclones, floods, and other analysis we did. So I am coming to the important thing, how this hazard risk analysis of gift city. For a particular city, what are the factors which we need to look at and this multi-hazard and all that. So for this, I'm sharing this presentation. So this particular city is next to Gandhinagar. Actually, it is attached to Gandhinagar, which is the capital of Gujarat. So it's a new and upcoming city. The standards of international standards, as we see in other countries, also how the high-rise buildings are coming. Like around 55-story buildings are there here on an average like that. So together in one place, a very high density of population is estimated once all the infrastructure comes up. So it is happening actually. About 7 8 buildings are constructed. Again, I am the team leader for this particular project. So here we try to assess the historic data. What we say return period. Return period means for how many years, what kind of intensity of earthquake can happen. So this kind of analysis we used and try to assess the local geological condition, the shear and other things, and prepared a map and then try to assess. But this was slightly safer. It is not close to Bhuj and that Saurashtra or Kutch area, which is more prone to earthquakes. Otherwise, Gujarat is highly one of the highly prone, on an average, highly prone earthquake zone only. But this particular area is relatively safe. Like this, we need to develop the this is VS30. That's what shear and other things we look into. So this mapped and then we found how safe it is. Then again we try to see the 50 years return period. Then also it is safer. Very few earthquakes happen. The inside picture you can see the right side, the whole Gujarat and that purple color, indigo color spots are there. So the point this gift city is also shown. So that is also safer place. So here actually, as I said, multi-hazard, as I told, earthquake is one event, but there could be non-structural damage, that is utility, infrastructure, everything could damage. The pipelines can be broken or the gas pipelines can broken, and from gas again leakage to again fire hazard can happen. Like that, many things are like structural damage also when happens, the buildings collapse. Again, there is a dam nearby, so even if that collapse, there will be flooding event occurring. So there will be flood, human loss, fire hazard, and overall the business community, everything gets affected. So like that, even the name or brand of that area will also come down. So nobody will be willing in the future to resettle there. So there will be lots of disruption. So this is how each factor is interlinked and it has a magnifying effect or multiplier effect. So this we have to remember for everything it is there. So conclusion. So these conclusions are okay, fine. What we gave is for their own this thing for government to make some decisions. So flood and extreme rainfall. Again for the same place we try to next slide please. Yeah. Next. Yeah, flood and extreme rainfall. So here again, medium, major, and minor projects, silent features, then flood control cell data, reservoir data, overflow of dams, all the data from the department has been taken up, even meteorological data, all that. The topography, contours, location. Actually, this is located close to a local river, but it was an elevated area. That's fine, but still, floods can happen. Historic floods can happen. So here again we try to map how much area will be under submergence. Yes, definitely some part of area could be under submergence. It's a Sabarmati river, so a low-lying area. So what could happen if that infrastructure fails? So that also we try to assess. So here basically the sewage treatment plant and some pipelines, cables, substations, underground areas, and all these are located already. So here this map we again, which are the safer areas in case of the historic threats also like that. So again we have given here the map, safer and more prone areas. So you could see the white color patch of building infrastructure close to the river. Yeah. Again, as I said, the multi-hazard, what is the chance? Heavy rain, with direct rain also there could be flood, river flood also, flood, dam break also can cause flood. Then again, non-structural damage and structural damage. So there is a utility tunnel in this particular city. It is very well made, but it is close to the road level only. So there are some pathways to enter this utility tunnel. So we felt that there is every chance that the roads would get flooded. Then all the water within seconds it can reach. So while doing the analysis and the pipeline breakdown, leakages, electricity breakdown, and all these are other things, multiplier effects. Then cyclone, yes, it is far off from the sea, but still there is sometimes. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here again, the cyclone, it is far off from the sea, but there is every chance that there could be a cyclone occurring here, or intensity will be there. So that we try to look into historic events. But this, what we say, wind funnel effect, because of location of buildings. Let us say each company has their own plot and they are raising their own building. What will happen is with the particular location or interrelationship of each building, there could be the very high in speed because of this funnel effect, and that could cause lots of damage. We have seen next slide, madam. I'm speaking about wind funnel effect. Yeah. So you have seen in this cyclone in Orissa when it happened. Lots of these glass windows they came out. So even if there is something small opening at one side and there will be low pressure created on the other side, then automatically everything will be sucked out and they would fall down. Falling down again will have lots of other implications on the people below or anything like that. So this also we try to assess. Even practically, I took this anemometer which measures the wind. So one day I measured around 22 kilometers per hour wind was blowing. Even at that wind speed, what happens at different levels that I try to assess and see what is the thing. 22 kilometers per hour is a small thing. Even cyclone, super cyclone happens around 120 kilometers per hour is the thing. That is a bigger thing challenge actually. So here again with the cyclones, historic things. Next slide. Historic cyclones and events they have been mapped and we try to look at what happened earlier. This also gives a flare picture. And the next slide. Then cyclone hazard map has been shown here. So the path of the cyclone is also shown in dotted line. So here. Then this is the conclusion that what are the measures to be taken for better protection. Again, the cascading effect is damage due to high wind speed. What will happen? That could happen during the heavy rainfall also flood. Means these are the other implications during that cyclone. And damage to trees, facade and hoardings, poles, non-structural damage. Communication loss will be there definitely, and effect on business community continuity. Uh, so like that. The most important is fire. Next, excuse me. Next slide, please. Yeah. Fire is less considered, but when it happens, it is going to have highest impact, especially in high-rise buildings, because there won't be an escape. Even if it happens in one floor or two floors, but its spread will be in the whole building because of a particular things in the architecture that you all are well aware. But still, if you are giving staircase from outside, definitely at least the people who want to escape, they'll have a fair chance of escaping. But in most of the building, the staircase is inside in a closed environment. So it means the entrance will act like a chimney. Basically, the entrance at the base or the floors that will be drawing the air, and fire can within no time it can become an inferno, reaching all the floors by default. So when these buildings which are enclosed from all the four sides, the fire hazard is very very high. So even when we saw some of the best buildings there, but this aspect they have not looked at. And also we try to look into all the infrastructure in place. You might say different fire extinguishing systems are there, including what we saw is the vehicle can't move around the building. There are so many barricades kept around the building, or the greenery has been developed, or some ornamentation has been done. So for preventing vehicles, some again barricades are there. So in real case of hazard, how the vehicle is going will go around the building. So that is also not considered. So like that, there are very minor, even the storage of chemicals where they are located, and including the office materials. It could be the papers or anything, small things also, which are prone to, are the kind of materials used inside the building as part of this decoration or beautification, like that infrastructure and all that. So there are many things. The Surat fire you might be remembering about 2 years back. It happened near. It was a coaching center, and suddenly fire happened in the down floor, and the students had no choice, and some died because of this carbon monoxide and all that, and some jumped from the building also. So here, fuels, ignition sources, preventive barriers, fire prevention, fire safety management, when happens, even mitigative barriers, fire protection, egress and emergency response, early detection and control, loss of control. So all these things are part of this analysis actually. Again, we try to look into the emergency access of the vehicles and all that. This is also very, very important for any geographic area. Next slide, please. So this is also least considered actually in many places. So we try to look at what are the three. These are the only three access points to the any place from outside support. So here again we try to look in each building, and each building we try to assess medium, low, and high. This is based on a particular occupancy types of fuels and the codes categorizing the building for level of fire hazard prevent has been done. So including the other facilities places. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, click thrice, then next slide. Yeah, this one I'm speaking about. So for different buildings, we try to look into. Then again, the business occupancy type and what is the type of building that also we looked into. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, next. Frequency and occurrence values. Yeah. So here it was looked into what could be the frequency during lifetime of the building, 25 years. Basically, whatever infrastructure we develop, the lifetime is not like the earlier times. You all know as architect students. What is constructed by my father, the son may not be liking. So they are removing that and again reconstructing differently. So 25, 50 years maybe lifespan. But anyhow, we try to build for longer periods. Then likely to occur once in 5 years. Like that, we try to look into different things. Once in a year, what is the likelihood and the consequences, property damage, injuries, business continuity, minor property damage, then significant damage. And this is a risk matrix and frequency and consequences. Based on that, the risk has been assessed. High, medium, low risk and all that. Proposed fire scenarios like in a particular scenario, let us say fire in office equipment after office hour. If it happens, what will happen? That is a scenario. Then spontaneous ignition in turpentine soaked racks office hours. What will happen? No, proposed fire scenario. A slide before, madam. Yeah, I'm here. So city control center, there is a control system which monitors everything, and if fire in electronic components happens there, what will happen? And arson, if it happens in a particular building, what will happen? Let us say a car bomb is placed below. Coming from with 3 years of experience in Afghanistan, I know these things more than anybody else. I have seen practically what are the different measures taken for this terrorist and human bombs or these vehicle bombs and all these things uh, that happen there frequently. So I also try to look into, even do have bunkers and all that also I try to look into. Otherwise we just give an assembly area, and from there somebody will take you. Even in assembly area, if the whole building falls upon you, what you will do? During earthquake, you cannot go to such places again. So like that, in each system we try to look into, like solid waste management, fire in waste material due to auto ignition, like that. All this we try to look into. Next slide. So here are the details of each fire event that could happen. So these are given in far more detail, as I told at that time while we were doing this particular study. The Surat fire incident happened, and government was more particular about this fire hazard in this particular city. So we try to go very intensively and try to analyze this whole thing. We almost all travel to all the buildings and all floors and try to look at all the corners, which existing about 10 buildings. Of course, other new buildings are coming. So here again the same the risk and everything. But here, as I told you, the cascading effect is again the damage to equipment, furniture, data. Go slides. Change the slides, madam. Yeah, cascading effect on fire. Yeah, next, next. Yeah. So here, so damage to equipment, furniture, data, and everything is looked into. And then, as you know, this, as I said, fire again it will cause to human loss, injuries, trauma, and other things. So there will be many other things: electricity, background, smoke, insecurity, and business will also get affected. So all these things will happen. Next. So fire protection systems and equipment we looked into. So wet razor systems are kept in manual mode, like that. So installation orientation of a double hydrant valves not will not allow operation. How they are located, even whether the boxes are locked, whether the keys are available, or can they break and open the walls, like that. So all these things we looked. Sometimes the local person, the manager or the security guard or somebody, for the security reason, they try to close everything. So all these things, do we have generator to operate the pumps for water and all that. So all these details we looked into. Next. So again we mentioned the good practices: fire alarm system, automatic sprinkler system, which are existing there, fire command centers, and protected and refrigerated stair enclosure. This is what required actually, which we said. Protected and pressurized stair enclosures. As I told you, this the people who are moving out should be well protected. So that is a system. Okay. Next. Yeah, chemical hazard. Also, it is not an industrial area, but therefore some chemical stored. We try to measure what are the chemicals stored for water treatment or the district cooling system. There is a centralized cooling system and sewage treatment. What are the chemicals used, which are hazardous, like that. And like in the electric substation, we have diesel. What is the quantity that is there? And with that, what could be the hazard that could happen? Next. So like that, we looked into fire thing. Next. So man-made things, again, this is very, very important, which we never imagine, like bombing or suicide bombing or rocket and mortar attack, because this particular place is very close to Pakistan border. So already we don't have good relationship with our neighbor. So we had Akshardham incident in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, you know very well if you remember, terrorists attacking that complex, temple complex. So there is every possibility of like vehicle-based VBID, we say, vehicle-based improvised explosive devices, or conventional firearms somebody carries, and nuclear weapons, cyber terrorism, biological, chemical weapons, So like that again we tried and tried to assess in the high, low like that categories. I mean the same slide. Yeah, it's okay. So again we try to look into damage to infrastructure due to each of the things. Okay. And what is the disturbance in business continuity and damage to people, all that we try to look into and made this matrix. Yeah. Next. So key elements at risk, what are the things there? So all the systems that are in place like gas network, ICT services, sewage and treatment plants, water supply system, solid waste management, the power plant. All these are key elements basically in any infrastructure. So actually, if you have this kind of analysis before you plan your architecture, I think definitely you are going to bring up far better buildings, looking at preventing this kind of risks in the future. As architect students, anyhow, you will be learning as part of your curriculum, but these are practical things which comes only by being in the field. As theoretically, nobody will teach you these things. Yeah. Next. Yeah, thank you very much. Although with the difficulty of being outside this thing, I could manage to complete this presentation with less connectivity also.